Hey people, this episode of WTF is sponsored by Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com and type in WTF when you click the radio microphone to start a no-risk trial and get a bonus offer worth $110. That's Stamps.com. Enter WTF. Do it.
Lock the gate!
Are we doing this? Really? Wait for it. Are we doing this? Wait for it. How? What the fuck?
WTF.
And it's also, what the fuck? What's wrong with me? It's time for WTF. What the fuck?
With Marc Maron.
All right, let's do this, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies. What the fucking Tennesseans? Does that, nah, man, come on. Come on. It's gotta work. It's gotta work as a word. Have some respect. Have some respect for the context, man. Why are you talking to yourself? Because I'm in a car. I'm driving from Murfreesboro, Tennessee to Nashville, Tennessee to interview Jack White. I'm in a very, decidedly not sexy car. It's like a candy apple red Rev4. Is that what it is? A SUV. I'm not cranky. I guess I'm a little nervous. Trying to prepare here. That'll help. Okay, so now I'm in a car in Nashville, on the highway to Nashville, listening to Sun House, Death Letter, a song that had a profound effect on me, and listened to it on vinyl for the first time. It was just one of those portals into the pain of the blues that punched me in the brain. And I guess I'm heading out to Jack White to, talk about the blues. It's got to be part of it. I love his new record. I liked his old records. But there's a haunting thing to it. I mean, the guy is haunted by the spirit of American music, and he seems like a fairly charismatic dude. Got a lot going on. He's a fucking rock star. And I'm driving in my red Toyota. Rented. Would never buy a red Toyota. Buy maybe a silver Toyota. I can live with that. All right, so I'm going over to the Third Man Records, and we'll pick this up when I get there.
I said the girl's gonna lay in a judgment day.
Okay, don't mean to interrupt, but it's that time, folks. Yes, it is. It's time for Stamps.com. Hey, look, if you're still going to the post office to send out your letters and packages, the truth is you're wasting your time, my friends. Take my advice. Use Stamps.com instead. Stamps.com is the quick and easy way to get postage. You can buy and print official U.S. postage using what you already have, what you're probably sitting in front of right now, your own computer and your own printer. And with the digital scale they give you, Stamps.com eliminates the guesswork, folks. You'll get exact postage for any letter or package 24/7 whenever you need it. I do it. We were doing it in here yesterday, printing out the postage. Kind of fun, sending off posters and CDs to you people that order them with my own little digital scale that's hooked up to my computer. Of course, I'm always thinking like, could I weigh food on that? Could I do Weight Watchers with the digital scale from Stamps.com? Not the point. The point is, right now, you can use my promo code WTF for this special offer. A no-risk trial plus $110 bonus offer. That includes the digital scale and up to $55 free postage. Don't wait, people. Go to Stamps.com, and before you do anything else, click on the radio microphone at the top of the homepage and type in WTF. That's Stamps.com. Enter WTF. Do it. Now let's get back to Jack.
They have like a comedy stage or something?
Yeah, they got a comedy stage. It's all right. It's not the best situation for comedy. Wandering people that are just like, I just want to cool off, and they wander in. And there's a lot of people there, but it's very hard for me not to hate them immediately.
Festivals have never been my favorite place to play. It's it's not a good environment for any kind of performance. It's
really?
just,
Why is that? Because like I felt like you can't hear the audience. You don't know how you're doing. Shit just dissipates.
it's a party, you know. It's like it's basically an organized, gigantic block party wherever it is, and you know the best place for music or probably like you're saying comedy is in a dark club with the lights off,
Nice low ceiling.
Yeah.
Like a bar.
Yeah.
Because
You can't walk out of a club. You can walk away from a festival show.
Yeah.
And that, even just the freedom of that, even if you're stuck in the crowd, you still know in the back of your mind, I could just walk over that other side of this place. And like if you're in a movie theater, you get the vibes that, you know, the door's not locked behind you, but you basically feel like you're here.
Right.
You can't leave.
Yeah.
And that's reverential to what's happening on stage or on screen.
Right.
You know?
Yep. But at a concert, you're just sort of like, you know, there's a guy like, you know, a half a mile away going, I'm just going to go get some fried chicken or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Some fried dough. It's like, I listened to, coming over here in not so much in preparation, but like I was listening to Sun House in preparation to talk to you. It's like, I mean, I had the vinyl of Death Letter and it was, and I got that later in life, and it was one of those moments where it was one of those listening to that song where you're like, holy fuck. Changed my life.
Yeah.
And I was listening to that coming over here because I know you go back that far with that shit.
Yeah.
And like in terms of like when that first struck you, the sort of soul of that music, when the hell was that?
I was a teenager. I can't remember how old I was, but I was a teenager sometime. I had known a little bit about the blues, like Howlin' Wolf and all the English bands that loved the blues and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But not really full on, like getting into Robert Johnson or Sun House or any of the deeper ones. I have to admit, I was a little bit scared. I remember when I was about 14 years old, I went to a record store when I was about 14. I remember I was like a freshman in high school, I guess, and had that new Robert Johnson box set had come out that did so well.
With the 2 discs?
Yeah, his picture on the front. And that picture on the front, legitimately was scary to me.
The
when
cigarette
I was 14.
hanging out of his mouth?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I kind of look back like, why was that so scary to me? I just had heard something about him like, selling his soul to the devil or something at that time. I mean, I don't know, maybe the picture just was, wow, I don't want to listen to that music. You know, I remember saying that at 14. So kind of funny, like a couple of years later or whatever, how maybe that was the final attraction. Eventually, when you say something like that, you're eventually going to be drawn into it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the same with me and cigarettes and everything else. Everything that looked kind of dark and weird. Eventually, you're like, I got to go in there.
Maybe so, yeah.
And you grew up where, in Detroit?
In Detroit, yeah.
And was there a music scene? Like, did you get any of that kind of wave crashing of any? I mean, you're younger than me, so all those Motor City bands were kind of gone, right?
Yeah, there was the garage rock sort of scene was starting. It had started a few years before the White Stripes had played, which is a band called the Gories and Rocket 455. Those were the big garage rock bands in Detroit. So there was a new scene developing by the time the White Stripes had come around with bands like the Henchmen and the Demolition Doll Rods and things like that. So, and by the time the White Stripes started to get like in the, maybe a couple of years in, there was a lot of bands. It was 30 bands. It was really, really smoking.
And there was just that like punk rock thing almost, that just the thrust of it all. Did you ever listen to the Gun Club?
Oh yeah, big time, yeah.
Because I was going through the old White Stripes and there was a drive there, like that dude, he had that blues thing too, huh?
Yeah. And they came from a bizarre kind of another angle of it, which is so interesting, that Los Angeles sort of, almost like if you look at a picture of the Gun Club, it looks like they should have been in Motley Crue or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I wanted to there was a moment where I had with the Robert Johnson thing, like when you first start listening to that shit, like your brain doesn't really know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And then like, to sort of integrate it and to figure it out. Cause like it seems that you took like some of those patterns and you were able to translate it. Cause a lot of times people dismiss the blues and it pisses me off because like the blues at some point became like bar band music. Mm-hmm. But the deep shit is, it has its own life and it keeps growing in your brain. Mm-hmm. And you were able to sort of extract that and fucking punch it up. When I listen to your shit, it's like, it almost has its own. You seem to be haunted by the spirit of American music.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it feels that way to me too. When if you sit down on the piano and I play a chord, they're not my chords. They're not my feelings. I think there's like if you grew up like in an Appalachian family, you played that kind of hill music,
right.
Southern music. You you would always feel like, yeah, this is 100-year-old stuff I'm playing.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. You know?
Right.
And that's great. I didn't write this, but nobody cares.
Right.
We're not into it for breaking new ground right here. We're into this for the tradition of it, the respect of it all. And I feel that same way about the blues, no matter what its other contexts are, like punk rock or country or whatever else it's split up into, the 1,000 things it's split into. It's all the blues to me, so I'm immediately respectful to it as soon as I play the first chord.
And you feel it.
Yeah. If you're lucky, you feel it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's.
And you grew up like in, what was the family situation?
I grew up in a train car. My family was dead on the side of the road.
Okay, great.
So,
yeah, that's good. That's the mythology.
A lot of people think that's me making stuff up, but
that's the origin story.
it is funny how much people think I make stuff up, though. But I've never like done all that kind of, where that, I remember you have a lot of those rappers like put in there from hard hoods and stuff. Like I actually was from a fucking hard neighborhood, and it almost seems like people even in Detroit didn't care about that, because like most of the Detroit artists are all from the suburbs,
right?
And it's kind of funny. No, I'm actually from the city, by the way.
What was left of the city then? I mean, like what was like high school like for you? What were you driving around?
Very, very desolate.
Yeah.
It's even less buildings. Like Dominic, my friend from high school, he's playing bass with me now live, and we just went and played Detroit last week, and we played across the street from where we went to high school. And the high school had been knocked down, and they built a new one next to it. But the old building was such a beautiful building. It was kind of a shame they had to do that. Not even kind of. It was a terrible shame they had to do it. But it's a lot of bizarreness. There's not enough money to keep those things alive, to keep those old buildings alive, and there's no interest in someone redeveloping it. So a lot of those things just go. Old Tiger Stadium, which was the oldest stadium in the league, got knocked down, and seemed like if that was in another town, if that was in Boston or Chicago, that wouldn't have happened.
I know. I never, I heard about stuff about Detroit now where they were actually thinking about pulling in the city line and just cutting most of the city loose.
Yeah, they've been talking about that for a long time. That's a great idea. They really should just get rid of the city government altogether and start all over again. I mean, they've just failed. They have failed for 30 years.
Do you still have family there?
Yeah, my whole family lives there.
How many people are in your family? I know it's big.
I got 9 brothers and sisters.
Can you name them all?
Yeah. Yes. Maureen, Ann, Ray, Steve, Joe, Barb, Leo, Eddie, Alan, and me. I can't.
10 kids, man. And you were where in the order?
I'm the last.
Oh my God.
And my mom was 45 when she had me too. So, and I was 7 years older than it was 7 years since the 9th child. So I was way tacked on at the end. It was, I was basically like they found an orphan or something. Put them in the house. It's bizarre. Like, all my brothers and sisters were like 21. They could have been my parents.
Yeah. And so you were like, were you in an accident?
Oh, I had to be. Yeah. I mean, it was like, I think every one of them was. It's like a Catholic family. And so there was no,
there's no accidents. It's just, you just
they're
deal
all
with it.
gifts from God.
Yeah.
But they're all,
And what was
nobody was planned.
Yeah. And what was your old man's business?
My parents both worked for the Catholic Church, so he was in charge of like 3 buildings in downtown Detroit, like maintenance for all of them.
Uh-huh. And your mom
She was a secretary for the cardinal.
So for the big guy.
Yes, yeah.
So were you hip to all the politics of the church? I mean, when did you sort of start to understand that?
Yeah, it was we were fully engrossed in it. And, I was an altar boy. My brothers all went to the seminary. I got accepted at a seminary. I didn't go at the last second. I changed my mind and went to public high school.
At the last second? I mean, were you really?
I was accepted. I was going to go to Wisconsin, go to the seminary like my brothers had done too, and I just sort of.
Your brothers are priests?
No, they didn't become. One of my brothers became a brother. It's called a brother.
Yeah.
And but none of the rest of them had become priests.
Now, when you were all growing up, I mean, did you believe it?
Yeah, you don't really know any better or know any different.
But I mean,
have a choice. Yeah.
So hell was a real thing to you?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have like all of that, all of it. Yeah, you're fully engrossed in it like that.
Like I can't. I grew up Jewish, and I know that the Catholic thing. You go into a Catholic church, and it's a pretty heavy mindfuck. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, was it full on like incense and the whole business?
Oh yeah. The
Latin.
Yeah. Well, that had changed. That had changed in the '60s, but before I was going. But that was what they used to do. My brothers went to those Latin masses.
Did you find that, like, when you were a kid, you did confession and all that?
Yeah.
And you carried all that shame for everything?
See, there's Jewish guilt and Catholic guilt.
Yeah.
They have similarities, but they're guilt alone is a heavy thing to throw on kids. It can help you sculpt your life. It can help you have a good personality in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways too, you can't shake it.
The guilt.
It's hard to cleanse yourself of that and shake yourself and realize that a lot of other people are not feeling the same guilt that you're feeling. You have to go through a whole period where you kind of try to get rid of that.
Yeah, and not beat yourself up, because it's hard not to translate guilt into just, I'm an asshole.
Oh, exactly. Totally. Totally.
And when, do you have kids now, do you raise them Catholic, or is it still in you?
I'm not really, I've never been a religious person since I've been an adult. I said the word religion, it's a bad word, I believe in God, but I don't believe in any paths to get to him. Any of these things people made up down here.
How about the hell thing? Is that still intact?
I don't believe in hell. I don't think I think that's sort of a ridiculous thing. I don't even think the Bible really talks about hell.
Yeah.
If you really get down to studying it, it's something about Revelation said something about that, but everything else doesn't really mention that very much. And I think a lot of people disagree with that, but there's a lot of funny things about the Bible that people don't realize. There's no mention of the devil living in hell in the Bible anywhere.
Right. So you went and did the research?
All that stuff. No, it's just like, when you read things here and there, you kind of think there's a lot of misconceptions, and they're going to keep continuing for hundreds of years. Just because it's easier to sell it if you do it that way.
Sure, yeah. If you can scare the shit out of people into coming to church every week and throwing a few bucks into the dish.
Yeah.
But I imagine that getting rid of hell was probably a load off. Did it just fade away?
I made a record a few years ago called "Get Behind Me, Satan," and that was my favorite thing that Jesus said in the Bible, because I think it's such a bizarre statement to make, to get behind me, and the double side of it, like you're playing the devil's music, and the devil's a part of it. Or there's any kind of quote unquote temptations that there's a movie that Al Pacino made where he's the devil.
Yeah, Devil's Advocate.
Yeah. He gives this really, the movie can be cheesy at times, but he gives this great speech at the end where he says he's a friend of man. Like, I've always given man exactly what man wanted. I never said you could look at this stuff that you can't have. Look but don't touch.
Right.
Touch but don't eat but don't taste. All these things. And I thought that's really brilliant. That is exactly if there is a devil, that was exactly what he's doing, giving you what you want. And why does God do the opposite? Why does he put that in front of us and take it away? And why do you make us want these things that we're not allowed to have?
Right.
What is the whole point of that? That test is a ridiculous test that seems beneath a God.
Sure.
I think.
I think that conception of God was to try to provoke us into having some sort of moral compass.
Yeah.
Like, once you realize, hey, if I fuck all of these women and my dick falls off, maybe I shouldn't do that so much. Or hey, if I drink and my belly becomes distended, there was, I never understood it until I talked to some dude who, he was actually, he's a journalist, Chris Hedges. He was in the seminary, and then he decided to be a war journalist. And he wrote this book about how, there's no perfecting the human. It's just sin. The idea of sin is there just to keep us sort of
in the middle of the road.
Right. To have something to judge our shit against.
Yeah.
So this preoccupation with the devil, it sort of drives blues music and rock and roll, though. And you seem to be pretty aware of that.
I think because you can't help but decide when and where you're allowed to really want something. I mean, one person could tell you, yeah, you're allowed to have that, and somebody else could tell you, you're absolutely not allowed to have that. And we have to decide for ourselves what's quote-unquote right for us to have, what to experience, to do, to say, all those things. And I've written about that a lot over the years. I'm still written about it on the new record as well.
I know the new record, there's some beautiful songs about that. The challenge of relationship, the challenge of trust, the challenge of, what love means, and, whether something is love or not.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff is it's real shit.
Well, if you're going to talk about love in a song, you're going to have to, your challenge as a songwriter is to really try to think of a new angle on it. That's because it's been done so many times, and to really evoke that word, to actually say it out loud, love, you have to really be at least trying to think about it on a different level.
For some reason, when I was driving over here, I was thinking and listening to all the songs and listening to blues music. Does heartbreak play into it? I mean, have you ever been handed your ass?
I think that's that's sort of the greatest definition of the blues. Yeah, is that exact kind of pain when someone leaves you and is not coming back. Whatever that pain is, that stomach ache, like seeing your girlfriend with some other guy somewhere or something, that where you get that stomach ache. Some people will actually throw up, or some people just get this pain.
Some people kill people.
Yeah, well they go but the actual pain of it, the physical pain that your brain gives your stomach is I think that's very much the pinnacle of, I want to say the pinnacle, but how to define what the blues could feel like at those moments, that kind of loss. I don't, sometimes if someone died or someone you loved died, whatever, you might not feel that stomach ache where it's 13 different feelings at once: jealousy, anger, hurt,
self-hate,
self-hate, all that are all inside that stomach ache. And I think that's a really good spot to think of if you think of what the blues is supposed to mean.
Yeah, and what you do with that moment.
Yeah.
What kind of asshole you become. How far you fall. How much you drink. I mean, because you think about it, people are only killed over money and pussy, really. and that's the whole blues thing, like, I'm going to go shoot that guy or I'm not. Or I'm going to shoot myself. That it's a weird mixture of longing, the urgency of the fucked up thing about it is there's nothing you can do. Mm-hmm. If someone goes and they're done,
there's nothing you can do. Yeah. And Sunhouse says that too, the best, that it ain't hard to love somebody that doesn't love you, and that sums it up pretty quickly in one sentence. And that's exactly what we're just talking about.
So when you were younger and you were thinking about going into the church, I mean, what was the drive there? Was it just sort of like, I guess I'm doing this, or I want to help people, or
whatever the calling is, to feel that you're okay to stand on stage in front of a microphone and let any kind of words out, that you have the right to do that, or the ability or whatever. I think it's the same drive for what they would call the calling of that vocation of priesthood. Why do you think that you could do that? I don't know. Like a lot of times when I'm on stage and performing, it'll sometimes hit me in the middle of a song. Like, who do I think I am that I'm standing up here, playing? People always say, were you having questions that perturbed me, or did you have fun, or were you nervous before the show? I don't really get nervous, so I don't know that feeling that way. I've always just been able to walk up in front of 1,000 people and be no big deal, whatever. They're just standing there and I'm just standing here, so what? And the other thing is fun, did you have fun? Like, I don't know how to really have fun performing music. I don't really know how to do that. I know to try to get somewhere with it, push myself. I know all these other things. And that sounds a little bit pretentious to say, but I always kind of thought, fun was like being in like a Motley Crue or something like that.
Right. You got to be twirling guitars around.
Where you're having everyone smiling, having a blast, and it's a party. Like, I don't know. I've never had that feeling. I get enjoyment and fulfillment, like accomplishing something and getting somewhere. Wow, we pulled that off, or that was a hard one to do, or that note was really expressive, or whatever. And involving yourself in struggle, that's not a problem. But how do you say that after a show? Yeah, I really involved myself in struggle and pulled off something really complicated. Sure, if you want to call it fun, it's fun. It's fun.
How do you confuse a fan?
I don't know.
Dude, did you have fun up there? Well, we were engaged in a struggle. It's like, all right, man. All right, cool.
It sounds pretentious. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's pretentious.
It's hard to explain it. And
it's not. I know the exact same thing. There's just as a comic, if I get up there, I mean, my whole thing was, but this is different. It's like, early on, it was like, I'm going to defy you to like me.
Right.
and then we'll do that thing. Right, you know what I mean? It's just a dynamic. But when you're up there, when you hit it, and there must be some, at least elation or something somewhat dopamine flustering. Like you must feel the juice.
Well, you get to a different point too. Sometimes, like say the White Stripes got to a point where we could play a festival like we were talking about.
Yeah.
And we could write out a set list and say, well, all right, let's play this, and this, and that'll totally win them over.
Kill.
That's it. But it's like, we never had a set list, and I still don't. It's like, I don't want to do that. That's too easy. We're not accomplishing anything. We're not experiencing anything, and the crowd is just witnessing something.
The hits.
Just showbiz. Yeah.
You're like alive. You're just, you're a puppet of your own making.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't used to be able to do it before you had any sort of thing that would have been played on the radio. You didn't have that ability to just go out and do that.
Yeah.
You can imagine now if you're a famous band like Green Day or Chili Peppers or whatever, those bands, they have a million radio hits. They can come out and just slaughter a festival crowd.
And sleep through it.
Yeah, and you can sleep through it too. So that's a tough challenge, I bet.
Yeah, I just saw Radiohead the other night, and they got balls, man. I mean,
they do.
And they mentioned you. They said they were over here.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's up with that. You're like Nashville royalty now. We're just gonna go by Jackson. Why'd you end up down here?
I had to leave Detroit. I didn't feel comfortable anymore. I sort of like didn't have any friends left, and it was not this environment that was good for what happened to the White Stripes. It was very cynical and jaded, and
just the musician scene.
Yeah, the musician scene around us. It's a tough town. The whole Rust Belt's a tough place to live. I mean, it's a gruff, jaded kind of place to live. You got to be. And I was fine with that. I didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
Until the White Stripes hit, and I'm like, oh man, you can't do this here. You can't really do this here.
Well, because of the jealousy and the spite and the infighting
and everything about it. Yeah.
There was no real infrastructure to keep growing.
Right. I mean, if you're a country star here in Nashville and you come up, if you're Taylor Swift or something, and you come up in this environment, there's a lot here to support you. There's also a lot to tear you down, but there's a lot to support you and let you exist. You can find your place. And it's also, but I didn't have a place in Detroit anymore. There was no place left for me. It was all used up.
And you didn't want to go to L.A.?
Big cities are kind of claustrophobic for me. It's hard for me to breathe in. I feel like everybody's doing this, and also there's they kind of the attitude like, yeah, I've seen that, so what? I've seen everything.
Exactly.
That kind of makes me like not interested in art anymore. It makes me feel like,
oh yeah, and also once you get to a certain point of expertise in your thing, you don't want to go somewhere just to be dismissed as he'll be around for a little while.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And you can't even pull people in L.A. But here, there's integrity to this place, man. I mean, there's a lot of ghosts down here. This is like the real historic American music town.
Yeah.
You can go out to Graceland and,
It always felt accidental to
that's in
comfortable
Memphis,
and accidental. Yeah. Tennessee altogether is, music history is amazing. And But the anywhere down south, I looked all over, Georgia and Mississippi. I looked all over for a place to live. And
why the South in particular?
It always felt comfortable to me on tour. It always felt comfortable to me. Every time I went on tour, I thought, wow, this feels really like home to me down here. Everyone's so nice, and their respect for music is so different than anywhere else in the world. English speaking world that I actually know about.
Right. And this is really the heart of it, isn't it? I mean, the South is really where it all came up.
Yeah, and then I kept working in Tennessee and Memphis and Nashville. And Memphis is very similar to Detroit. It's basically the same town. So it ended up being Nashville that felt right.
Did you ever go on any pilgrimages when you got down here? I mean, did you go to Graceland? Did you go do that stuff?
I didn't go to Graceland until like a year ago with the Dead Weather. We were on tour, and they let us come in there and give us a private tour, which was really nice.
What were your feelings about it? Were you surprised?
It was very funny for me because Scarlett and Henry, my kids were with us, and Scarlett was about 4 years old, I guess. It's like a year and a half ago. And she said some really funny things over there. She goes, well, I'm not going to be shy, Dad. If Elvis comes out, I'm not going to be shy. I'll shake his hand. I said, I'm sorry, honey. Elvis isn't here. Like, he went up to heaven. And
sure.
And she says, okay. And then when we got in the van and we were leaving, she said, and we're driving away in Memphis. We're driving away from Graceland in the van. She says, Dad, are we in heaven? And I said in Elvis's voice, I'm close, baby. We're in Memphis. She said a lot of funny stuff.
Were you surprised though how it's not that extravagant a home in a way?
No, not at all. It's tiny too.
Yeah, and you think like Graceland, it's just like there's a shag carpet, and there were 3 TV sets, and that was like a big deal then.
Big deal.
Yeah, he'd watch all 3.
Yeah.
Whoa, holy shit, that guy lived.
Yeah.
Did you go into the trophy house and see all that stuff?
Yeah, all that, and it's a nice place. What's cool about it is it's in a neighborhood. I mean, on his yard is everyone else's backyard. They could look over and see Elvis in his yard.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing that he lived like that, so close to people.
Yeah. Were you a big Elvis fan?
Oh yeah, of course. Totally.
When you were growing up,
how can you not?
I know. It's pretty, but he's another guy. It's like the blues music that this shit grows on you.
Yeah.
As you get, do you find that with music as you get older? Like you go back and listen to something,
Yeah.
and you're like, "What? How did I not notice that before?"
Yeah, exactly. But that was a good example. Like, there'll be a time period where you'll go like, big deal, whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, he was a pop singer from back then or something.
Yeah.
But then you realize, oh, wow, Elvis is just an alien.
Yeah.
Just like Hank Williams. And these guys are just aliens.
Yeah, Hank Williams, man. Did you ever go down there and go to where he used to play? Did he play in those honky tonks?
Well, he grew up on my block. I mean, he didn't grow up. He lived on my block that I live on here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And they moved his house to where he grew up. I think they pulled his house. And then Tammy Wynette bought it.
Yeah.
And now it's like a church, I think. It's
Really?
like a church community center or something.
His house is a church community
Yeah, down
center?
the street from my house, yeah.
Oh, not the house. They didn't move the house and make it a church.
Someone told me they went into Tammy's house and pulled out Hank's house in the middle, plucked it out and took it down to wherever he's from, Montgomery, Alabama. I think he's from where Hank grew up.
So do you hang out with these cats now? Because it seems like you're at this level where you got to be playing with your heroes on some level. Like, with people like George Jones and stuff. Do you see them around?
Man, I would love to meet George. I never met George Jones. I think he lives like a mile from my house. I don't know where though. Someone told me he does. So.
And you had Jerry Lee Lewis here.
Yes, yeah.
How was that?
Great. He was great.
Yeah?
He was great. Really great to talk to. And he was sitting in this office here, and Chris Christopherson came in, and they had talked about some old shows they had done together, and there's a lot of interesting things, like Steve Cropper was he's playing in the band that day. He said, yeah, me and Jerry recorded this song, The Meat Man, never got released back then. So we were all looking that up and listening to those songs that hadn't been released or got released in some European label later on, whatever. It was just a lot of history going on. Those guys have played so many shows together, Yeah.
Do people just stop by, Jack? I mean, what's going on
man.
here?
Well, I got to tell you, like there's something about the building that this is, and for me, to people who work here, to strangers, to other musicians, there's something about it that is it's kind of electromagnetic. I don't know what it is, because I just wanted a place to store my gear. When I bought this building, it was going to be store my gear, and I had Swank and Blackwell were coming in here, and they were going to just re-release the old White Stripes 45s. That was it. They had a job to do, there's 15 45s. Let's get them back in print, get the artwork, and get it. That was it. And then we said, we'll have a little shop in front. And when someone buzzes, we'll go and sell them a record if they want to buy one from here. It'll happen twice a week or something.
Yeah.
Good Lord, man. That shop it has hundreds of people that come through it every day. And this place has turned into, in 3 years, I've produced 150 records in 3 years here. And all records that wouldn't have existed had this building had not been built. And,
the building was here, though, right? Or you built it?
It was. Yeah, it was being used for some audio, video production, industrial videos.
Well, it's pretty, you've got it, kind of swanked out. It's pretty, I don't know it's sort of Victorian Gothic kind of.
I designed the whole place, and sometimes, and the materials is my favorite part, is picking the materials.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man.
This is very similar to, this is our waveboard studio boards there.
Yeah.
That were used in my studio that we broke the blades on after we made them. We cut them so nobody else could have the same ones.
Right.
To scatter sound. That's to scatter sound.
Uh-huh.
Not absorb or reflect it.
And what about some of these? You got a lot of taxidermied animals.
Yes, that's a peacock.
Yeah.
What's that called?
You got a skull. You need a human skull.
Someone
got to have a couple of those around. Then you've got the strange bit of tribal African paraphernalia up there. Is that like
somebody gave me
armor?
That's from the Congo. Somebody gave me that.
Of course it is. Of course. Now it's got a place on top of a Macintosh 275 tube amplifier. I get what's going on, man.
You get where I'm coming from,
sure,
now?
Man. You're sucking shit out of the sky. I get I'm not going to mention the steel casket against the wall. And at the end of the interview, you're going to show me Robert Johnson's head somewhere, and there's a blunderbuss, right?
That is a blunderbuss. Yeah.
It's a real one.
That was from the Ryman Theater here, the Grand Ole Opry Theater. Ryman. We sold out 2 nights, so that was their present to me. It was a blunderbuss framed up like that.
That's amazing. Now, what's it? So you track down these instruments? Is that an old harmony or something?
Yeah, that was a mask. That's a guitar that was made into a mask I wore on the cover of the Dead Weather's last album. It was.
Oh, okay. All right.
Prop band had turned it into a mask.
Now, what's that? I'm trying to see.
Giraffe.
That's a Gibson. I see the giraffe. That's a real giraffe head, right?
That's from Joan Jett. Joan Jett gave me that.
That Gibson?
That Gibson.
And that's like a giraffe head. That's like a real. For some reason I just took it in as not a real giraffe head, but now I'm looking at it.
Well, the funniest thing about it is that it has a brass plaque at the bottom that says giraffe on it.
If anyone's wondering,
looking for
where'd you pick this shit? Why the animals? What's up with that?
You know, when I was younger, I would go on tour and I would come home and I would never go shopping for a t-shirt or anything. You know, I never bought anything when I was younger. And then I started to go out. Because I didn't go out. I would play the show and just go to sleep. You know, I never was interested in partying, never did drugs, and never stayed out late with people.
Never?
I just didn't really do that early on at all. I would just all about the music, and then I would just go to bed. So I started to let myself go, and I've always loved older things, antiques and things. So I used to go to antique shops wherever town we went to. And you know, you start doing that around the world for 10 years, you know, you just start picking things up here and there.
Well, what's that? What's the seating there? That looks like it was
that was from a bowling alley in Pennsylvania.
Sure. I get it. Yeah.
Now you're getting it, man.
And now this is interesting because this is a huge blow-up picture, I think, of the only existing photograph of Charlie Patton.
That's right, yes.
And that's a ghostly image, man.
It's a beautiful photograph because you really can't tell what kind of person that is. I mean, it could be white, black, or you know, Howlin' Wolf said he was Cherokee Indian too, which is very interesting too.
Well, I think he was red-haired, wasn't he?
That's what they say, yeah. And it looks like it could be in that photo. It's very bizarre looking person. It just looks. That's exactly who you'd think would be the grandfather of the blues.
Right.
Somebody who looked like that.
Like I had a moment with those, because these, like with Robert Johnson and Charlie Patton, there's a finite number of recordings. No one's going to unearth any more shit.
Right.
You got these Library of Congress things, or the Alan Lomax things. But I had the thing that broke my brain open with him was Boll Weevil Blues for some reason.
Yeah, it's great.
It's just like he sounds like he's got gravel in his throat.
He really does. I mean, I would imagine most people, the first time you listen to Charlie Patton, you'd be like, what is this? This is undiscernible garble, whatever. Right. And, man, 3-4 times in, it just becomes so incredible.
Right.
It's so incredible.
And Leadbelly, same thing with you?
Yeah, Leadbelly. Leadbelly is just but the difference between him and Leadbelly is a master of melody. I mean, his ability to write melodies in songs is just unparalleled back then. He started so many traditions, I think. I think he started traditions that people don't really notice. With melody, or what folk songs that he would pick to sing. There's
a song on the new album that's got a real sort of folk, almost Leadbelly drive to it. What's the one on the new album that's kind of like Irene Goodnight a little bit?
I guess I should go to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We recorded that, and this band Pokey Lafarge was the band in the studio when we did that. And afterwards, we were talking about it. I was like, this has kind of a Leadbelly feel to it. Now we play it back, Didn't feel it at the time, but but very much so. You could hear some melody like that.
And I noticed about their new record too that like you seem to be like there's something representative of almost every element of your musical psyche on there. That's my assumption.
Maybe so, yeah.
Because there's some good blues, there's some almost ballady stuff. There's a lot of that piano that I can only the type of piano that the way you're using it now, like a couple of like Beggar's Banquet or a couple of those things.
Yeah.
When did you start doing that? I mean, because that's sort of new. I mean, it's all over the record. There's even some electric piano on there. It sounds great.
Yeah. There was a couple of there was a great piano player on this record named Brooke Wagner who she kind of can do anything. So this became a thing where I started orchestrating my own music, which I'd never really done before, like having 7-8 people and
studio
tell them
guys
exactly what I want them to play.
Okay.
You don't really do that in a band. I do that in Raconteurs of Dead, where I don't really tell those guys what to play, really. We have a suggestion here and there, but when you're in a band, all the people play their own parts, make up their own parts. Even if they didn't write the song, they accompany the way they want to. When you're doing this and you have like 6-7 session people, they're just standing there waiting for you to tell them what to do. So it's a totally different scenario, which is how I attacked this. It just kind of made me feel comfortable to make a record with my own name on it for the first time.
Right. And so you used did you use a lot of sessions guys down here, like older dudes?
And from other places, from Detroit and from Brooklyn and L.A. and stuff too. They're from all over, but there were a lot of Nashville ones because I've been producing these 45s for Third Man for the last couple of years, so I've known all these different session musicians from each one of those sessions. So we knew like who'd be a good fiddle player on this song, who'd play good pedal steel on that song. You know, we just would know. And I'd say, well, try to get so and so today. I like to pick the day of. Can someone come right now and play drums?
Well, that's a great moment for a musician. They're just waking up. Jack White needs you over at the place. Like, fuck, I got to go. Where are my pants?
That kind of feeling, yeah. This really is. That's exactly what it is. It's a good energy because you woke up that morning not knowing what you were going to do, and then you're in the middle of that recording. If I told you 3 days ago on Thursday,
you've been freaking out about it,
or something would happen, or we're going to do this thing, so the energy would get lost. And what I love about that is that that drummer is out of town. He's playing a gig. Okay, well then get somebody else. Now the whole situation is totally arbitrary,
right? And
now I can create something out of that.
But you know these guys are awesome. So there's never the sort of like, well, that guy's not as good. There's just a different drummer.
But you do get in these scenarios where you have to use somebody that I would not have normally used, and it's sort of like, all right, that guy's only bluegrass, and we're gonna put him on this rock and roll song. Like we'll make it work. You know?
And
that wasn't my first choice, but now we can make something cool. And usually it's better. It's that way.
When you were a teenager, what was who were your guys really in terms of the music?
It changed year by year as I was a teenager because I was coming out of like my brothers all had a band and they were very into sort of rock and roll, famous rock and roll. Bob Dylan, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. They were into all those big bands.
That's the gift of older brothers.
Yes.
I mean, you grew up with just, can I borrow this record?
Yeah, exactly.
Which was the first rock record where you're like, holy fuck?
I remember when I was a kid, like about 6 years old, I remember listening to The Who with my friends on the block. We would listen to The Who a lot. So that was definitely the first thing I can remember while rewinding the tape and playing it over and over again and knowing all the lyrics and stuff. That was The Who, Meaty Beaty Big and Bouncy, that like greatest hits of theirs, I think it was.
Yeah. And how did it evolve? So you had the basic sort of bedrock of classic rock.
Yes.
And you were driving around listening to that shit?
Yes, and then by the time I got to be like maybe 15, I was working at an upholstery shop, and that upholsterer, who actually his family grew up next to ours, and he started turning me on all kinds of things: Velvet Underground, The Cramps.
You need that guy.
Yeah.
Those guys, like they're life changers.
They really are. They're my mentors. I've had a lot of mentors. I kind of would seek out mentors. I think from having older brothers, so many of them. You kind of were born with mentors already in the house a bit, and because they're not your parents, and they don't really need to turn you on, but they do to things, and so I would always seek those out as I was growing. And as a songwriter too, I started hanging out with, European artists in coffee shops and different things like that, and just always people like 20 years older than me.
Sure. Well, how was your dad around much?
Yeah. He just passed away a couple of years ago, so he was there the whole time. Yeah.
He was good. He was like a solid dad.
He's very funny. He was a very funny guy. He's classic old 40s kind of dad, Yeah.
What'd you learn from him? He
would always he would that's a good question. Well, I can give you an example. Just popped in my head. Would be like one time we were watching W.C. Fields juggle cigar boxes.
Yeah.
And it's just 3 boxes, and he flipped the middle one on the end and grabbed the end.
Right. Oh yeah.
Back in the middle. That thing, and he just looked at me and said, "Try it sometime," and it's sort of like that kind of thing where, that's right. This shit ain't easy.
That's the moment.
Yeah.
Did you try it?
No, I don't know, but his point, his point was,
yeah.
These guys know what they're doing, and there's people that know what they're doing, there's people that don't, and people that have heart and soul to what it is, and people who are all fluff and are just up there for whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's what his scope was on it.
And these other mentors. So you had the guy. There's that important guy that's sort of like, you've never heard of the Velvet Underground? You're like, no. And then all of a sudden everything changes.
Yeah.
But you were consciously seeking some sort of input from dudes.
I wanted to play music at any and all costs. I remember you
never did another job?
You mean
outside of music, like when you were younger?
Well, yeah, I did upholstery, and then I had my own upholstery shop after that.
How old were you when you had your own upholstery shop? Because you're a young guy.
21.
You opened an upholstery shop.
I was very go-getter, man. Like when I was 21, I had my own house, mortgage. I had a van, shitty van, and I was in 3 bands, and I had my own upholstery shop. I was always trucking really fast, and
you wanted to make the business.
I just wanted to create things. I mean, I think the business side of it was bad for me when it came to the upholstery shop because I got so into the cartooniness of it. You know, I was writing people's bills in crayon and dressed in yellow, black, and white with a yellow van that used to be a fire department van, and I just
And
people
what would you
didn't
upholster?
take it seriously.
Yeah.
Like antiques and things for people.
And you knew how to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You could upholster something now?
Oh yeah, I could do this couch right now. Yeah, this is a channel back couch with this alternate color welting. This is mohair fabric from 1940s, which is why it's still together right now. If it had been velvet, it would have been worn out easily. But mohair can last.
This is the original fabric?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you could strip this down and put it back together with the tools.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a very difficult trade. It takes probably like 10 years to really get to the point where you can feel really comfortable doing it. So.
And what other arty things did you do when you were upholstering?
Well, that's a good point. Actually, a good way of putting it, because I had a studio and I was also doing constructed sculpture there, and I was also in 3 bands. So.
Constructed sculpture.
Sort of like I was working on, it would be amalgamations of things, putting things together, not taking away, like chiseling sculpture. Putting together,
sure.
And
like this entire room.
Basically, yeah. So I was doing all that. I was in all those bands, and it was very, very hard to, because I didn't care about the money. Like they pay you for a couch or something, you'd finish, and I'd always be like, I'm not excited about this because I'm just going to take this money and pay the electric bill with it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So what? It never got me excited to if I did 2 couches, I could have had twice that much money.
Right.
I'm like, who cares? I don't know. It just never.
Just getting by and making shit.
Never bit into me like that.
Right.
I cared more about if I could figure out a way to make music or art and not have to have a day job and actually have that freedom of that where you can create all day long. Wow. What's that like? I get these little tastes of it here and there.
So you were black and yellow van. Now you got a black and yellow building, and then you did red and white for a while. What's with the color schemes?
They're very centered around the number 3. I was sort of obsessed with that number being about perfection. There's an appeal to it's like yellow, black, and white, or red, white, and black. There's I was just reading something yesterday about teams that wear red in the Olympics, countries that happen to have red in their flag, that they're more likely to win a gold medal. It's just a statistic, who cares? But at the same time, red's a really powerful color. So I knew that with the white stripes, so when we had picked that, I said that's a really powerful color. I mean, from Nazi iconography to Coca-Cola to the Red Cross to fire engines, and that color invokes so much inspiration and anger and all kinds of things with people. I think that's just the most powerful color combination you could pick. And
I'm glad that was a long list. I'm glad it wasn't just like the Nazi,
and just stop right there. You know how great they were.
Yeah. It's a very powerful color.
No, but but that does invoke the cartooniness of the Nazis. Take that for example.
Sure.
There was a cartooniness to them. Like if you were going to design the evil other army you were fighting,
sure. It'd be them. Yeah.
How could you not design? You looked exactly like that. There's some English comedy show like Little Britain or something like that where there was like 2 Nazis at a bunker, and one of them says to they're like, we have skulls on our hats, like the SS soldiers. And he goes, yeah. So he goes, don't you think maybe we're the baddies? I think we're the bad guys. No. We're
That's a revelation.
Like none of us ever sat and thought about it.
Yeah.
I think maybe we're the bad guys.
We're scaring people. That's funny. So the 3 thing, that's a real obsession.
Yeah, it's very.
You think
it's like a good blessing. Like if you're working on something.
Yeah.
To me, it means that's an attempt at trying to do it the right way. It's an attempt at trying, because it's not good to be a perfectionist. That just gets into OCD and anal and
beating yourself up,
control freak, and all those things. But if I find that if I revolve something around the number 3, at least there was an attempt made towards doing it right. Maybe like those WC Fields, those 3 boxes, or
right,
like that. Maybe it has that feeling like you can show that there's not much else. Like you take a speaker, you got low, mids, and highs. You got there's thousands of frequencies, but we separate to those 3 things.
You also got the Father.
You got it all covered.
The Father, Son, the Holy Ghost.
Yes, you got that too. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's the last thing you held on to of your Catholic upbringing was some obsession with the Trinity, triangles, points.
But I don't like triangles, by the way. Actually,
No triangles.
I don't like them. They scare me for some reason.
A lot of points.
They make a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I never was any good at the mathematics. So with the new record, like I got to tell you about this moment I had because I hadn't listened to the new record yet, and I was just in the car. I knew I was going to talk to you, but I had no idea what was on the record. And it was during the day, and I'm driving down the street. I'm listening to KCRW, and I'm Shakin' comes on, and and in my mind, that song is like the Blasters fucking owned that song, and I'm just driving.
I never knew about. By the way, I never even knew the Blasters.
You never
knew?
No. Well, but
not until we put it out.
Right. And so, like, I'm just driving. I knew that song. And it's like, sort of like, someone's covering, I'm shaking. And then, like, it turned from that to, like, what the fuck is this? Oh, my God. Like, there was just those bursts of background vocals and that drive that you got with that drum. That thing kicks ass.
Thank you.
You must have been happy with that.
Yeah, well, that's why it went on the album, because it wasn't supposed to. I had all female musicians in the studio. That was the first day. I said, well, tomorrow we'll have all female musicians and see if that changes the energy of what's happening here in the room. We'll have them record the same songs the guys did yesterday.
Yeah. So that was the all-female band?
Yeah, so I said, yeah, usually when you start with a whole new thing, it's good to start. I like to put a cover song out there first. Break the ice, get everybody used to playing together.
Oh, you mean when you're recording?
Yeah, like say these girls never played with each other, never played with me.
Have they ever played that kind of music?
Rather than go right into one of my songs and try to make it great on tape or whatever.
Right.
Let's play a cover song together and see if we can all find some common ground, and then you'll get the vibe of what we're trying to do.
Now when you do that, did you play the original, the Little John?
I played them Little Willie John. I didn't know about the Blasters version.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that many people knew about Little Willie John. That was left on a CD at my house. Someone made a comp CD and left it at my house. That I'm Shakin', which I had never heard that song till like 2 years ago. So,
oh, really? It's a great song, right?
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Why? How do you pick your covers? Like, why?
It's tough. It's tough. You almost like Stop Breaking Down is another example where I didn't know the Rolling Stones had done it.
Really?
Yeah. I just liked Robert Johnson's version, and that was supposed to be at that point. There was also another. There was another idea behind why we did it, was because it was going to be the back side of this song. The Big Three Killed My Baby was going to be a 45, and I thought Stop Breaking Down. It was like a tongue in cheek about auto companies,
right?
Like the cars breaking down,
right? So
it was that was the initial. Well, that would be great if we did that, but then we started playing it, and it turned into something way more powerful. And then so that ended up going on the album, just like I'm Shakin' did it. It kind of grows on its own. You kind of think it's just going to be no big deal,
right?
And of
just
course,
a cover.
Of course, that's the one that grows into something bigger, and you have to put it on the record.
And also those are ones that are like they've got that weird depth of having the history of that song, like you talked about earlier. That, that there's, like you said, you're not aware you're playing a song that's 60, 70 years old,
right?
And then it comes with all that. There's a magic that you're pulling out of it.
Yeah,
right.
Well, there is. It's almost a little bit easy. It's almost, I think when sampling first came out, people thought, oh, well, of course, you're just taking a song that's already proven itself. It's already a hit. People already know it and love it. And you're just putting something else on top of it. That's not fair.
Right.
The rest of us have to sit and think this stuff up and write it from scratch. And it is a little bit of, it's still like, when you are covering a song, if you don't pay the proper respect to the fact that it is part of a tradition, in your own head at least, you have to bow a little bit towards that before you change it and add it and change it to something new, instead of just like, I don't give a damn who wrote this,
right,
or whatever.
Well, I don't think you were going to get a lot of flack. It's like, oh, that's just Robert Johnson did the work on that one.
Well, he didn't either. All Robert Johnson's songs were other people's songs,
wandering
and he
around.
didn't really write his own, and he added to mostly traditional stuff, which I didn't realize for a while as well.
What do you think of Hellhounds on My Trail?
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Crazy, right?
It doesn't seem like it could be possibly recorded. I don't think you could even attempt to recreate that moment. Imagine who recorded that. The white businessman from the record label recorded. Okay, Robert, that was great.
Yeah.
Let's try something else.
We got a hit.
Can you imagine him looking at someone else and like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
That must have been amazing.
Have you ever had moments like that here? Because I don't know, what exactly is your model here? Are you running the new Sun Records? I mean, people just stop by and they get in the booth and, come on, let's see what happens.
It's funny. I was saying that recently, like, there's people who come here and everybody has a different vibe, and which I think is great. Because you can hear someone come up and say like, "Oh, your record's good," or "Your show was great," or whatever, and you might think you're getting somewhere. There might be a chance you're getting somewhere or something new, but you're really getting somewhere when people say different things. Like if everyone says that song sounds great, it sounds like the Beatles.
Right.
If everyone says that to you, you're kind of like after the fifth time, you're like, ah, damn.
Yeah.
It just sounds like the Beatles.
Right.
But when everyone, like when people come here and someone says, like you just said Sun Records, and then other people have said, this is like Apple Records, or this is like Prince's Paisley Park, or this is like Chess Records.
Right.
We hear that all the time across the world. Then now I know we're getting somewhere totally new because, you know what I mean? Like
that people were saying that sounds like
because that's what I would do.
Records.
I would walk in and be like, wow, this place is like blah, 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 something like that. And then you start thinking like, it's hard for just human nature to think that you're walking into something totally brand new. And nothing is totally brand new. Everything is part of the tradition.
My sense was that like, I don't have a sense of how record, recording studios work, because it's not my business, but it just seems like there's a community evolving around you and around the place, and the respect that other artists have for you as a producer and as a musician. They want to come hang out and be part of that. And my feeling was always with Sun Records was that that Elvis and Jerry Lee were just hanging out, and Carl Perkins would pop in.
Exactly.
Why don't you guys get in there and do that?
Yeah, well, very much so. It is in that world, because if you think of the bigger labels like Capitol or something like that, you would never think you could walk into Capitol and have anything to go on there. Even if you're already a named artist or something, you couldn't really walk into Capitol and say, hey, can I put out a 45 on your label? There's contracts, there's all that kind of stuff. But this sort of label is so many different kinds of things at once. You could come in, you could be a band. The Red Hot Chili Peppers could come in here and play a live show here in this room and
tomorrow
release it on vinyl,
right?
Vinyl only on live concert, if they wanted to. And I'd love them to do that. It'd be great. But that's the thing. I think it's the kind of place I would think that if I found it on the road, like on tour, it's the kind of place you kind of expect to run into a few times. I'm going to go start touring for years, and then you think you're going to run into these places, but you never do.
Right.
You never run into these mythical places in your head where things can happen.
Right.
We're in Brazil, and we recorded in the studio straight to acetate.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
No.
It's like we were playing.
It takes a lot of planning to do Exile on Main Street. You got to rent a mansion.
Well, like this place has, the live venue has the only one in the world where you can record in front of a live audience to analog tape. You have an 8-track tape booth next to the stage. And people say, oh, there's got to be other ones. Like, I would have heard of it. Someone would have said it to me. If all the places I've gone on tour, next time you play Berlin, you should play here because they have
no one does
a tape booth next to the stage. And someone would have mentioned it.
So you start with analog tape, for your vinyl? Always?
Yes, yeah.
See, it seems like you got a respect for the old crackly stuff. And you got all these Macintosh tube amps.
Sure.
They're beautiful. Yeah. But do you have an issue? Like, did you do Blunderbuss on analog?
Oh yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. No one does that anymore. Am I wrong?
I did on 8 tracks. Yeah. It's no, nobody does it. It's very difficult. Like, it's very much. It's, if you're used to Pro Tools and computers, how easy it is to edit and record. You just click with a mouse. Tape looks like just a bunch of work that's not necessary anymore. And what do you
outside of the ritual? What to you is the primary, the sound difference?
It sounds so much better. It's just uncanny how much better it sounds. There's actually a thing that's really proved it to me. I worked at the studio in Blackbird here in Nashville, a couple records, a White Stripes and a Raconteurs record. And what we would do is you would record on a 16-track, for example. You got the songs recorded, and you're going to mix it. You bounce all those tape tracks to Pro Tools, and you do all your moves that you're going to do in the mix. You program all your moves on the board,
right?
Not in the computer, on the board. Like, this snare drum's going to get louder during the chorus or whatever. All those moves, you go through it, and so you listen to the song, 200 times, memorizing all those moves,
right?
And program all those. Okay. So you don't want to wear out the tape and the heads on the machine and wear out the motors and wait for it to rewind and all this stuff. You do it on the Pro Tools. Okay, we're all done. We got all the moves set. Pop the tape back on. Yeah. Oh my God, you wouldn't believe how much better that tape sounds than that Pro Tools thing you've been listening to 200 times in a row.
Right.
If you could just let people sit there that whole time and experience that, they would never record on computer again if they could know the difference. But if you just listen to it once, I'll play you my song on tape. Now here it is on Pro Tools. You'd be like, what? It sounds exactly the same.
Right.
So what? It's just this inherent thing. I mean, you really have to get down into it to really know the difference and I didn't experience that till like 10 years into recording it, and always just feeling like tape just feels right.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, because it's a real thing. It's
Yeah.
not just some configuration of ones and zeros or whatever
Exactly,
the fuck happens.
yeah,
That
it's
you
real.
you've got this thing that needs to move.
Yeah.
Something needs to turn,
And this
in order for
song, this book, the Perfecting Sound Forever, they wrote this great way of putting it, is that, an analog, which is cutting into a vinyl or recording onto tape, the pencil gets put on the paper and is dragged across the paper, and it never leaves the paper. With digital and computers, the pencil is lifted off the paper.
over and over.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how your sample rate can be a million times a second or 1,000 times a second. It doesn't matter. There's still separations between
Right.
that.
No
There's
straight
also
line.
people who think that there's a psychological thing that does to our brain, like it fatigues us.
Yeah.
because we're missing those pieces.
Is that what's doing it to me?
That's what's doing it. Yeah.
There's a lot of pieces missing
Just a
everywhere.
theory, but it's interesting.
It is fucking interesting. I know we're running out of time, but I love that the Loretta Lynn record.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, what brought? I mean, just out of curiosity, was there some love there?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, were you like just blown away?
Meg and I listened to Loretta Lynn constantly on tour in the van. It was all the time. And we actually, on the way to recording our album White Blood Cells in Memphis, we stopped at Loretta's house that you can go on a little tour of.
Right.
And stuff, Hurricane Mills.
Yeah.
And because when we stopped there, we said, we should dedicate the album to Loretta. It would, we love her so much, and we listened to it, and there's no irony at all. I mean, we just love Loretta Lynn. We dedicated the album to her. And out of that dedication came an invitation to her house. And while we're at dinner, she said she was working on an album. And I just said, if you're looking for a producer, I'll put my hat in the ring. Just mentioned it. I thought, no way, they're not going to let me produce that, whatever. And then they asked me to do it. But then I was worried that, oh no, it's going to be one of these, they're going to want to do like one of these compilation where every song's a duet record, or one of those kind of records that I don't like. And I said, okay, well, what were you thinking? Loretta's like, well, I've got all these songs. And we went to her house, and she brought all these songs out in her bedroom. She has hundreds of unrecorded songs written down. And just the first 10 that we pulled out were the ones we recorded.
Wow.
That was it. We didn't go searching through them all. We just pulled out 10.
And you pulled something out of her, man. I mean, because you don't, country music isn't produced like you produce that record. In the way that you left her voice so raw, and like on Vanderleer Rose when she kicks in and your guitar plows in, holy shit, you almost cry.
Yeah, that record, it's hard for me to listen to that first song, especially that, and it escaped. I think for some people it hasn't escaped the idea, or my attachment to it, or hero worship for a producer versus whatever other albums that have been made like that. But in my mind, I think it's all Loretta.
Yeah,
there,
right.
I think and then people kind of said at the time we were getting the Greenhorns there, well, you don't have any country musicians on the record. I said, well, Loretta is country. I mean, she'll be country.
Right.
You can't stop that. There's
Right.
no point in putting more country on top of her country.
Right.
Let's
well,
just,
they don't know how to take something in. Hey, where's the pedal steel?
Right. Yeah.
But was there one on there?
There was one on a couple songs. There was one on a couple songs, but it was light. It's not like country pedal steel.
Right.
It's coming from a guy from Detroit playing it.
Yeah.
So
some Motor
that's what was
City
even
pedal
better.
steel.
Yeah.
But you did get a little flack from the old guard.
I think people, well, for example, that record won we got 5 Grammy nominations, and in the Country Music Awards, 0. They
Isn't
did
that
not.
weird,
they
man?
did not. They did not dig it at the time.
Isn't that weird that there's this old boy network down here?
Bizarre, yeah.
And
I think it's changed. They came around to it quickly after, but at the time it was kind of funny.
And how'd that record do?
Great, yeah. I mean,
Did it do good with the country fans?
yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, when I walk around here, people would say 2 things to me: Cold Mountain and Loretta Lynn. That's when they see me.
That must feel good.
It's great. It's great that there's another side of the world that looks at it from a different angle with the things you put out there. It's kind of nice.
What's the plan? You going to tour now?
I'm just home with my kids for a couple of weeks, and now I'm going back out to Europe. So
For how long? How many days?
I'm trying to do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off now because I have kids. So that way I'm it makes sense to do it and then come back and instead of 3 weeks on and 1 week home, that starts to get like you really too. I mean, with kids my age, the age my kids are at, and when you're gone for more than 2 weeks, you're missing a lot.
Right.
I mean, they just grow up so fast. So I didn't want to. Plus the shows. I think after 2 weeks, the way I play shows with no set lists and stuff, you start to get into ruts. You start doing the same thing again.
Right.
And I'm trying to shake that up too.
And how the kid and your ex lives here, right? So you guys.
Yeah.
And how's kids changing you, man? I mean,
it's great. It's amazing.
Do you find like you're a little less self-involved?
You sort of start all over again from scratch. You sort of like wipe the slate clean, literally, and then you're living life all over again through somebody else.
Pretty amazing.
From the beginning. It teaches you so much you forgot, so much you thought you'd never care about. And there's definitely elements of it when you have as much freedom as an artist as I've been lucky and fortunate to experience. That is definitely something that's telling you you're not going to have this anymore. So you get a little bit worried about it, like, wow, I'm not going to ignore this element. I'm going to be a definite big part of it. And you have to give up a lot to do that. And so you kind of thought, all right, well, you just jump in and swim. And I thought I was going to have to give up maybe half or most of what I do in my life. And that's actually not true. You can do both. Just like any parent has to go to work 9 to 5 every day. Maybe you go to work 9 to 5 every day, but I go away for a week and a half or whatever it is. You know, it's the same thing. We're all away from our kids for a time and we come back.
Sure. And if you're not leaving because you don't want to deal with things, the love is still there and everything holds on.
Well, the funny thing is I might even spend more time with my kids because when I'm home, I'm with them all day long, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Instead of an hour in the morning and an hour at night before they go to bed.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
You make up the time.
It's just like...
And I can't even imagine they must have a million cousins.
Yeah, they do. They do, yeah.
And you and Meg get along all right still?
Yeah, and we have that whole family of people like who live here that are all their aunts and uncles too. You know, all the people, the Raconteurs and the Dead Weather, and all our friends and Swank and people. Those are all their extended family. You know, the way Third Man is, we just have a huge family now, which is great because me and Karen came here by ourselves. We didn't know anybody. We just came here cold. Me and her. That was it. We didn't have kids even. So it was a little bit scary at the time. We're like, we might be here by ourselves for a few years before we make any friends. You know? But now it's changed very much so, and Third Man's changed for everybody. So it feels very productive, creative, fulfilling for everyone across the board.
Well, congratulations on all your success, man.
Well, thank you.
It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm back out in the car. I think that went pretty well. I was a little nervous, but I'll tell you, man, I just saw a couple things. I just saw something happen that was really pretty great. But I don't know if I gave you a full idea of what he's got going on down here. I mean, Jack White has got this amazing operation. There's a store in front, and then you go in, and there's like a warehouse shipping area, and then you go further in, and there's this seating area with a kitchen counter and a fridge and all these stuffed animals and a great stereo system, bathrooms. There's a sound studio and some office space. And then back where we were talking is his office, which has got this beautiful door. And then in the very back, there's a performance space that seats like 200 people for live performing that he's got hooked up to at the analog recording booth. Pretty amazing. And his new album, Blunderbuss, is amazing. And when I walked out to come back out here to the car, you know, there was a father with kind of a mullety haircut and his 2 teenage sons looking through the records in the store. And I just walked out and I got back into my car, and then I saw Jack and his assistants, or the people that work for him. He walked out with his shades on, out to his his black, I believe it was a Mercedes there, and he was walking out, and the father come running after him from the store. And I don't know what was said, but from what happened next, I believe it was, can you take a picture with my boys? And Jack just turned around, came back, stood for the shot, let the old man take the picture, and that's a pretty great thing when performers, rock stars, take a few minutes out for the fans. Well, that's it. I'm going to drive to the airport now, and